Hello, folks. Does your social schedule overflow during the warmer months? Well, mine doesn't. But have you accidentally RSVP'd yes to too many things? Remember to take care of yourself this summer and recharge your social battery with the help of Sunset Lake's Sebedé's full spectrum tinctures. Doesn't matter whether you need to lower the volume on life a little bit, want to find a calm moment between all of your social functions, or don't want to overreact when your kid does something wrong at the home, doesn't clean up after the cats, or when the cats poop on the carpet for the umpteenth time. Hypothetically speaking. A dropper full of tincture from Sunset Lake Sebedé may be able to help. For me, right now, my go-to, and I will, if you have trouble sleeping, I beg you to go try the full spectrum Sebedé Good Night Oil tincture they have. It is fantastic. They also have Sebedé with melatonin. They have Sebedé on its own. They have multiple flavors of Sebedé. They have multiple strengths of Sebedé. They have some for pets to get your pets to chill out. My cats they sleep all the time. It's not like they're overactive.
Right.
It's just that when they're not sleeping, they're just pooping, and that's why it bothers me. That's why the Sebedé, just the straight stuff, is good for me as well. Folks, right now you can save 30% on all Sunset Lake Sebedé tinctures when you use the code tincture at checkout. Coincidentally, it's TINCTURE. SunsetLakeSebedé.com. Relax, recharge. Remember to visit SunsetLakeSebedé.com before June 18th. So you got about a week to save 30% on all their tinctures and their participating bundles. So you get, I think they have a bundle with a tincture and maybe some lotion and other stuff. Check it out. You can see their website for terms and conditions. And now it's time for the show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
If I get the feeling you've been cheated.
It is Monday, June 10th, 2024. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Matt Duss, Executive Vice President at the Center for International Policy, and he'll be in studio.
Whoa.
Also on the program today, Macron calls for snap elections in wake of far-right gains in the EU elections. Nearly 300 Palestinians, including dozens upon dozens of children, killed by Israel in a raid which rescues 4 hostages and perhaps kills several others. Benny Gantz leaves the war cabinet, calls on Netanyahu to accept the ceasefire deal. Meanwhile, a judge orders University of California academic workers to end their strike. Biden administration said to be readying a parole in place order, which would shield up to 800,000 undocumented immigrants in this country from prosecution and deportation. CBS YouGov poll shows Trump-Biden neck and neck in both the national and swing state polls. New York State passes a law giving parents an option of eliminating their kids' algorithmic feeds on social media. More testimony in the Menendez case as a witness claims he bribed the senator by giving him a Mercedes-Benz. Hunter Biden lawyers to rest their case today. And Julia Louis-Dreyfus hands it to Jerry Seinfeld.
Oh, I can't believe this made the headlines for you.
I was pretty happy about it. I enjoyed it.
Turns out if you're funny, you can have success across multiple shows as opposed to just one.
All this and more on today's Majority Report. Yes, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us at the beginning of another week.
Yes. Fun Day Monday.
Fun Day Monday.
Emma Vigeland. That's me.
Emma Vigeland's here.
We're here.
Yep, sorry about that. I was too excited about the Celtics.
Yes,
And,
or Julia Louis-Dreyfus turning on Jerry Seinfeld. I'm not sure which makes you
her
happier.
quote is just so fantastic in so many different ways.
Yeah.
I was very happy about it, just because I find him so annoying.
Yeah.
And just what a waste of just all of it.
Money?
Well, I don't care about
Culture.
money. It's just culture. It's just like God.
Yeah.
It's just horrible. But we will get to that. We got a lot to get to. We got Matt Duss in studio, which is exciting. We rarely have people in studio. And
That's what it means to be a mighty man of valor.
That's
there
what
you
it
go.
means.
Yep. And he'll be here to discuss with us. We may talk a little bit about what's going on in Europe. We're going to have another guest over the next week or so, I think, on that. But obviously, what impact Gantz leaving the war cabinet? And to be clear, this is not part of Netanyahu's governing coalition. Never included Benny Gantz or his party. But we'll find out from Matt, what that means in terms of destabilization. Also, where we're at with this potential ceasefire UN resolution that the U.S. wants to push, and more. Meanwhile, Donald Trump was in Nevada and Las Vegas last night. Was it last night? For a rally. And I don't want to make too much of this, because I think you can definitely overstate the importance of this one way or another. But Donald Trump, when he ran both in 2016 and 2020, was getting big numbers in his rallies. Now, Joe Biden, when he ran in 2020, I don't know if he even held a rally.
No.
If he did, maybe there was 500 people there. It's there's not a hardcore, Biden enthusiasm, regardless of what you think of his policies or not. This has not been ever the case.
Yeah, he's like Coldplay.
Yeah, exactly. But Donald Trump would attract huge numbers. And I think he got like 6,500 people at this rally, which is, I don't think I could draw 6,500 people in Las Vegas, but the issue is more like, is this trending in the right direction for him? Or, enthusiasm is what really was his driver in all instances, the depth of support that he had. And here he is in Las Vegas. We have some other clips of him speaking, but at one point he says, "I've got a lot of celebrities here." And then he introduced Marjorie Taylor Greene. And here she is at the rally. This is sort of like her Sermon on the Mount, I guess.
Going to tolerate it. The Democrats and the fake news media want to constantly talk about, oh, President Trump is a convicted felon. Well, you want to know something? The man that I worship is also a convicted felon. And he was murdered on a Roman cross. We've seen political corruption.
Pause it for 1 second. Now, I've watched this clip enough to wonder if during that pause she takes after the cross, if she was going to say, and
I
you know
knew
who
it.
put him there?
Oh, she was letting that thought by everyone in the audience fill that dead air, right? Was Jesus a convicted felon, Sam?
Well, I mean, I mean, he certainly was. The judicial system was very different back then.
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit different.
One-to-one parallels that. Right.
But I guess the good enough for Jesus, good enough for Trump, I guess is what she's saying there.
But I mean, okay, so Trump is not the first convicted felon in the history of the United States. So is she?
There's a lot of Jesuses running around, I think is what she's saying.
I mean, is she polytheistic at this point? We have to kind of look into it. But
this is why she has been protesting our carceral state for so long, is because she's afraid of all of the potential messiahs that could be in our prisons.
Jesus died for our sins. Trump died for a hush money payment to a adult film actress who he was sleeping with outside of the bounds of marriage. I mean, kind of similar set of circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, you say tomato, I say tomato. Just go back a little bit.
And he was murdered on a Roman cross. We've seen
wait, go back, because I can't help but maybe I just want to hear what's in the audience at that moment. Go ahead.
And he was murdered on a Roman cross.
Yeah, they said it! They said it!
What? Thank you.
That one guy, buy Jews!
That's what I heard.
Buy Jews! Thank you, sir.
Boy. Well, yes, thank you. Someone just got a Trump t-shirt for free. All right, go back a little bit and people can make their own decision. I mean, it could have been, the person could have said, by whom?
Achoo.
And he was murdered on a Roman cross. We've seen political corruption. We have seen this throughout history. This is nothing new. It's just the first time in American history we have been forced to deal with it. Now, here's how we deal with it, America. Here's how we deal with it, Nevada. You have to tell your friends and family, I'm sorry, friends and family. You have to get over being tired of the drama you see on the news. Because if we do not show up and vote on November 5th, if we do not bring all of our friends and family out, the drama that everyone is sick and tired of is going to get worse. Because I
want to go where she's going with what the drama is going to be here.
Also,
the drama that everyone is sick and tired of is going to get worse. Because I work with the Democrats. I listen to them every single day. They're going to raise your taxes. They're going to destroy generational wealth. That's right. You're going to be broke. And
can you pause
gas
it?
Prices
Okay, this, I don't know who she prepared this speech for.
Herself? Because didn't she inherit her business from her father?
Yeah, construction company.
So she,
But this notion of first off, I can't imagine a worse pitch to go to your friends or neighbors who are not planning to vote and go, I know you're sick of the drama. I know you think that he causes all this drama, and then just start haranguing them.
I'm the no drama president.
I feel like maybe that's not exactly the best angle to take. And then, I mean, aren't we led to believe that the reason that audiences like this are coming out and are supporting Trump because they are already immiserated, that they're already low income, and she's talking about it's sort of strange.
I mean, there might be one guy who's a little low income these days, because can you just pop up the frame here? Do you see the guy in both the Bitcoin hat and Bitcoin t-shirt behind her over there?
He's probably not doing super well at this moment.
But isn't this just the construction of how a lot of evangelical voters for Trump view him. They just kind of use the same religious framework for Trump. It's like, try to convince me that you guys are not a cult after Marjorie Taylor Greene compares him to Jesus.
I also want to say, like, I can't imagine the Biden campaign could hope for a better surrogate than Marjorie Taylor Greene for Donald Trump. I mean, honestly, if they're sitting there going like, is there any way for us to manipulate something so that Marjorie Taylor Greene goes out on the campaign trail for Donald Trump? She was really angling for this ever since she got left out of the trial stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And
they know it too. That's why they left her out.
She's made it. No, but she's made it to the podium. I wonder maybe if there's going to be a lot more of this, and I can't imagine the Biden campaign would have a problem with that. They're probably going to pay for her flights at this point. In a moment, we're going to be talking to Matt Duss, Executive Vice President at the Center for International Policy, about what's happening in Israel and Palestine, and also in the wake of the EU elections, where the fasci right is ascendant. First, couple words from our sponsors. Everybody likes clean air. Do you know inside air can actually be significantly more polluted than outdoor air, up to 5 times, mainly because of things like VOCs, which are volatile organic compounds. I think people are familiar that with like paint used to have a ton of VOCs and much less, but some paint still do. Furniture does when it's the laminate they put on it, cosmetics, mattresses sometimes, and more. Well, I've got a great way to clean your air. Is it a noisy air filter that's ugly? No. It's actually a beautiful looking plant.
Very beautiful looking plant.
This is like a classic, it looks like it is like I think of the pothos family. But the difference is this is a bioengineered living air purifier. It's a plant called NeoPX. NeoPX was invented by PhD scientists to target 3 of the most harmful VOCs found in your home. It is up to 30 times better than a regular houseplant at fighting indoor air pollution. It's based on 5 years of research and development to enable NeoPX to capture and recycle VOCs into useful matter like sugar and amino acids. That goes into the soil. It doesn't like come out the side of the container. And you can see from this picture, pop up this picture, NeoPX comes with a self-watering planter. So you just got to fill it. I don't know if you can see the reservoir there. You fill it once and you only have to water it every 2 or 3 weeks. And what you do is when you pour in the water, they give you this power drop, what they call packets. And the power drops enhance the ability of the plant to absorb and, I guess, convert these VOCs. I love plants. I'm not necessarily the best at keeping them alive, but these are actually sort of the easiest ones to keep alive. Not pothos.
Too much water.
No, because they don't need that much water. Ours is hanging in there over there. And this is even better because it cleans the air. You get 6 power drop sachets when you purchase the NeoPX. And to celebrate the launch, Neoplants is offering a 7th one free of charge. That's 1 extra month of pure air. Just click the link below, neoplants.com/majority, and the code will be applied automatically at checkout. Shipping available in the U.S. and soon to many more countries. It ships really well. And it's a beautiful plant. We got the link in the podcast and YouTube description. Also, this is disturbing. Did you know that you are eating and drinking roughly a credit card's worth of plastic a week?
Ugh.
The film around your dishwasher pods, it's actually plastic. And it dissolves in the dishwasher, and then it gets all over your plates. and it generates hundreds of microplastics that we end up ingesting. Blue Land is set out to do something about it, eliminate the need for single-use plastic in the products we reach for the most. I've been on this kick for quite a while. I've gotten rid of now all of, you have these big things of dishwashing liquid, and now I don't have them anymore. All I have is this beautiful like little blue tin. It uses no single-use plastic in any component. Blue Land doesn't matter. Their bottles, their tablets, their wrappers for shipping. It's all made out of like paper type of stuff. And their tablet packaging is fully compostable. Their dishwater tablets are proven to perform on baked on, burnt on stains. No rinse aid is needed. I have been using these things now for at least 6 months, and it's fantastic. It's much smaller. I'll have to lug this thing back from the thing. And I also have they have other bottles actually with other detergents.
I've been using it too, and it fits much more nicely too. It's also compact in that little tin.
It's the thing. I feel like I've saved, I don't know, 20 square feet in my apartment. It's like literally I've moved up the, I would get charged
Square
for rent
footage,
more.
yeah.
Yes. To celebrate Earth Month and Blue Land's 5th anniversary, Blue Land brought back all the fan favorite hand soap scents from the last 5 years into one best-selling limited edition. They've got pretty earthy lily mint, honeysuckle dew, strawberry rhubarb, jasmine moss. Take your pick and say goodbye to single-use plastic. I'll be honest with you. I think everybody knows I go with unscented everything. That's just my thing. Blue Land has a special offer for listeners right now. Get 15% off your first order by going to blueland.com/majority. You don't want to miss this. Blueland.com/majority, 15% off. That's blueland.com/majority, 15% off. We'll put the link and the code in the podcast and YouTube description. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, sitting right in the studio will be Matt Duss, Executive Vice President at the Center for International Policy. Be right back after this. We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. Want to welcome back to the program and into studio for the first time, Matt Duss. He's the Executive Vice President at the Center for International Policy. Matt, welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here. I think I was last year in studio in September.
Yeah, definitely not the first time.
Regret to inform you things have not improved.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess that's true. We were back. Yeah. Was it in September that you were here?
It was, I think, yes, it was September. I'm pretty sure because I just gotten back from a visit to Ukraine. So we talked about that a little bit.
We talked about Israel, though. I mean, we've talked to you a bunch. Maybe that's what we're confusing it. But.
Yeah, no, I'm sure that came up. We've talked a number of times.
And that was before October 7th.
Yeah,
obviously.
no, that was a few weeks before October 7th.
Wow.
All right. Well, let's start with the ceasefire proposal. You've written about this, and you wrote about it. I guess it was about a week ago that you wrote about it, when Biden announced it. Sort of, I mean, surely as a political matter, it was odd to do it Friday night when Donald Trump had been convicted that day.
Right.
Was that just? Did you read anything into that at all, or was that just sort of like, because it was just like, well, we need to do this now? Was there an urgency? Do you think that, or?
Yeah, I admit the timing was. I mean, I think Trump had the announcement of the conviction had come like the evening before. So, and for
right,
Fridays,
I guess it was on Thursday.
Yeah,
it was
on
a Thursday at about 5:30 at night.
Right.
Yeah.
And then this is kind of late afternoon or midday Friday when the president is going to give this speech. But he clearly felt urgency, although Friday tends to be a day when you put out things you don't want people to notice.
Right.
But he clearly, when the president makes a speech, the president wants people to notice. And, the move here was clearly to try and box in Netanyahu and Hamas by putting the deals of this proposal on the table. It contained, I think there were a number of things that were really significant. I mean, this was Biden for the first time publicly endorsing what Hamas has been asking for months, which is a permanent ceasefire. I mean, Biden put his name in support of that, saying this must now end. The downside, and this is part of what I wrote in the piece, is, you're trying to box Netanyahu in politically, but you're not providing an or else if he says no. Right. And this has consistently been a problem, not just with Biden's approach to Netanyahu, although he is particularly bad on this. It goes back. This is a longstanding problem of U.S. approach to dealing with Netanyahu and with the Israeli government. It's rare, if ever, we see the threat or imposition of real consequences. So if you're not really going to make it a real downside, what is the tough choice here? And we've seen Netanyahu respond, as he often does, by playing for time, by kind of throwing some provocative statements out there. The goal being to get the other side, in this case Hamas, to pull back from the prospect of an agreement. We saw him, use this play numerous times in past, negotiations with the PLO, with Abbas, where they would announce some new round of settlements or some other provocative thing that would just make clear that he's not talking in good faith.
Duncan Black, the blog Eschaton, which I'm sure I know you're familiar with.
Old school.
Old school. He had a post, I guess it was this morning actually, entitled Progress. And he writes, some movement from the White House, and he quotes 2 or 3 paragraphs from a Guardian piece. Joe Biden said on Tuesday he's warned Benjamin Netanyahu that Israel's indiscriminate bombing of Gaza was beginning to alienate Europe and the rest of the international community. Speaking at a fundraiser, the U.S. president ramped up pressure on Israel over any post-hostility deals. He said the Israelis can't say no to a Palestinian state and urged Netanyahu not to repeat the mistake made by the U.S. after 9/11. And then Duncan Black jokingly writes, wait, hold on, computer enhance. This article is more than 5 months old.
Right.
And so, this is more of the same. Like, what? I think it's pretty well documented, and it's pretty clear that Joe Biden has there's a big ideological element to his allergy towards holding Israel to account in any way,
right,
or leveraging anything with Israel. But do you think they also think that there's like some type of a political danger in holding them to account by saying like we're going to hold back X number of dollars?
Yeah, no, clearly, and they are right. There is a political danger. that's not an excuse not to do the right thing. But yes, I mean, let's look at the response when he said in that CNN interview a few weeks ago that he had decided to withhold 2,000-pound bombs from Israel to prevent them from continuing to use them in densely populated areas. Like the backlash to that from Republicans, even from some hawkish Democrats, and including from big Democratic donors like Haim Saban, was massive outrage. So there are clear political downsides to this. I just tend to think one should err on the side of not supporting mass atrocities, but this is clearly playing a role in his calculation, and you add that to, yes, as you said, a pretty deep ideological belief about how the U.S.-Israel relationship is supposed to work, and it's supposed to work in that the U.S. supports whatever Israel does with, minor adjustments here and there.
Well, but the ideology seems to be trumping at this point United States international interests, and I guess that's what I'm curious about your take on here, because the Biden administration had been trying to pivot to Asia, as have administrations since pre-9/11 until the U.S. continued to get bogged down in the Middle East. I understand they're concerned about China's rising influence within the region. I know them brokering, by the way, those talks between Iran and Saudi Arabia and cooling some of those relations there may have made the Biden administration nervous.
Right.
My assessment is that this just makes it harder for them to continue to make themselves felt in the Middle East with the rise of maybe China influencing there and Russia as well. But they're trying to almost will it into existence with this Abraham Accords deal.
No, I think what you said is right, and there is a contradiction here because their approach in the Middle East, and this is where the Saudi deal comes in, this big security deal that they're talking about, and they claim to have been getting close to the final terms of. I mean, this is in large part, a play to try to box China out of the Middle East and kind of consolidate or reconsolidate sort of American dominance and American influence in the region. And you mentioned the Saudi-Iran deal. What's interesting about that is, China was essentially kind of brought in at the last minute to kind of present the deal. There was so much work already done that China played no part in. But as I see it, and I think others have commented on this one, well, this was kind of a clever play by MBS to kind of let's say the audience for China brokering that deal was Joe Biden.
Right.
And the argument was, well, listen, we've got options. So what's your offer? And Biden has shown them what his offer is. It's an enormous offer, a security guarantee, a civilian nuclear program, and a bunch of new weapons. But it does, as you said, the costs here to America's global standing, to the relationship that we need to build with the global South is very, very severe. I mean, there is a competition for influence in some of these regions. And, there's a lot that could be said about this Gaza war, but one of the things is it has starkly demonstrated the double standard in the so-called rules-based order that has always been clear to the global South, but this is just the most powerful exhibit one could ask for.
It couldn't be more naked. So all right, before we because I do want to pull on that string a little bit more with Saudi Arabia. I mean, so much of this is the same sort of impetus, it feels like, with the Iraq War, which was, we need to be able to control the spigot of oil. Well, I guess we're heading down this path, and we'll circle back because recently there's been some reporting on what Biden did with the strategic petroleum reserve in this country, where he basically broke, at least temporarily and potentially going forward, OPEC's ability to control the price of oil by basically saying to traders, because he released us a real enormous amount of these reserves, and then ended up buying back and filling up the reserves, making, I think it was $30 a barrel, and we're talking millions of barrels of oil here, and basically set the word out, if oil gets too high, we're going to do this again. And if you've got any futures as an oil trader on oil going up, you're going to lose your shirt, which keeps people from doing that and keeps and suppresses the price of oil. I mean, I've simplified it a little bit, but that's the dynamic. I mean, so it's not really the price of oil that we're that concerned about here, right? It's more just we don't want you to sell unfettered amounts of oil to China because we think we're going to be in a conflict with it.
Well, it's that. I mean, it's oil, it's influence. I mean, China is making inroads as one would expect of a rising power. That's not to downplay the challenge of China, both to its own people and I think globally. Their vision of a world order is, I think, different from a lot of ours. But, there is just kind of this frantic attempt, as I said, to box China out of the region and sustain kind of American dominance. Sustain a set of security relationships that, if you actually look at them, I think clearly and honestly, have had enormous costs and are continuing to have enormous
costs. But it's also like when we say influence, all we really care about, it seems to me, is ultimately access to resources.
Or
right? I mean,
preventing China from getting access to oil, and they're more oil dominant than us in the
100%.
Energy transition because we're trying to at least get some EVs.
Right, it's trade, it's transit, it's the waterways. It's a lot in here.
And it's when we're talking about this region of the planet, it's ultimately resources, right? Because it's not so much markets, and that's the irony is that we have our corporate interests are all to open up China's markets, and so they're not going to, on one hand, we're trying to sort of limit the amount of, let's say, fuel they have to expand their economy. On the other hand, we have all the corporate interests that are going to be like, well, we want that economy to expand because that's where our markets are.
Yeah.
I don't know. It seems like there's this battle going on that no normal people are a part of.
It also seems like the Biden administration wants to return the region to a period where it was basically the 1990s at this point. And I don't necessarily know if that's possible given the rise of China and the fact that the United States, in its process of trying to continue to maintain its dominance in the Middle East, is alienating the global South by aiding and abetting, my words, a genocide.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to quote or to paraphrase, Rick James, global primacy is a hell of a drug, and there is kind of a schizophrenia to this administration's foreign policy. On the one hand, you do see a recognition that kind of neoliberalism, this trade theology that had guided America's global approach, has failed. And we need a new approach. And there's been some really important steps taken and thinking being done. However, you also have part of it, and I think Gaza demonstrates this commitment, this kind of religious ideological commitment to the necessity of American control, American military hegemony, and American influence defined as strong relationships, security-based relationships with some very bad regimes. And I think we need to question that logic.
This weekend, Ken Klippenstein got a hold of a White House document. And Ken's no longer with The Intercept. You can get his stuff on Substack. I think if you just go to his Twitter feed, I think he's still
he's known to advertise.
He'll occasionally drop the link. Yeah.
But he got a White House document that was leaked to him outlining the Biden administration's, in quotes, principles in regards to Gaza. This was not a document that had been made public before that. What do you make of that document, both in terms of like its substance and the fact that it's starting to leak?
Well, the document, all things considered, is a fairly good document. It is based in international law. It speaks pretty clearly about the need to end the occupation, which is not a way that Biden himself will talk about it or any of his senior team. So it is something to work with, and it's also important. It holds up, Israeli incitement and Israeli law breaking and Palestinian incitement and law breaking. These are both things that need to be opposed. But to actually move forward on the basis of these principles will require confronting the Israeli government in a way that Biden has as yet shown zero willingness to do. So if this is a real plan and they are serious about it, I'm ready to see it. I'm ready to support it. But again, what is contained in here requires really bringing some real pressure and leverage to bear on some of these policies from the Israeli government that are designed to foreclose Palestinian liberation.
I see all these things that make it seem like the Biden administration is trying to resolve this. But we still have this I don't know how many months ago it was that Benny Gantz came to the U.S. and on the way out,
March.
It was in March, I guess, on the way out after meeting with the White House. All the stories that were in the media were like, he really got his butt kicked. I mean, they just yelled at him and whatnot, which sounded like it sounded like a story that was planted. And then you had Chuck Schumer basically say, like, I want, Netanyahu gone. And then they, I got the sense that, like, Biden wanted to be able to announce something by the debate in June to show that he had the ability to wrap this whole thing up. And instead, we're getting a visit from Netanyahu that seems to be scheduled with no conditions, right? Like, this is not being dangled out there anymore. This is actually, what do they, like, do you have a sense of what they think they're doing? Or are they just this? I mean, well, because there's a problem here. Because on one hand, like, they're strong and wrong, but it seems like they're both wrong and weak. Yeah. Like, they're not, like he's ideologically committed to this, and they're also incompetent, which is a real problem for a guy who, aside from what's actually going on the ground. But in terms of, like, domestically speaking, his whole core brand proposition was like, I'm the guy who's in charge. I'm not going to,
return things to normal.
Yeah. And so do you think that they think that, are they surprised it's not working? Because it seems so obvious that it's not going to work.
Yeah, I mean, that is, I mean, what you described is right. And it sounds incoherent because it is incoherent. It is an incoherent policy. But I think going back to what we talked about, like Biden's kind of ideological approach here, it just precludes, I mean, he has taken a whole set of tools off the table from the beginning. And his team has now had to try and develop a workable policy within those very, very tight constraints. And let's recognize, I'm not saying that let's cancel the military aid, let's suspend military aid, and then Israel will do what we want it to do. I mean, I think it is the case that Israel could not sustain this war for very long without U.S. military support. We may change their behavior for better, but even if we don't, I think not supporting a mass atrocity is its own very strong upside.
Yes, of course.
But to go to your question, again, I mean, what underlies this, even though I think the rest of us can see that this policy is failing catastrophically, is that Biden, for both, again, ideological and political reasons, thinks it's better, the costs are smaller to stay the course, and that is pretty extraordinary.
Can I ask you about what in my opinion is a misreading, and I don't know if it's deliberate or it's just bad statecraft of the domestic political situation in Israel. So Benny Gantz, Sam just mentioned him, he's leaving the war cabinet. But it could go either way, right? It does ramp up pressure on Netanyahu, but him leaving does nothing about his coalition. Right. So the parties that Netanyahu formed a coalition with in the Knesset are the far-right parties led by Smotrich and Ben Gvir. That has been obvious since pre-October 7th. Right. So why are we, I guess, wishing that we can make a relationship with Benny Gantz or other centrist parties within Israel to potentially supplant Netanyahu when we've known from the beginning that just based on the math, that it's the far right that Netanyahu needs in order to stay in power.
That's right. I mean, as you noted, Gantz was not part of the coalition. He was part of the security cabinet. The people that could really endanger Netanyahu's rule are to his right, and they have made their views clear on this. They want this war to continue. We know Netanyahu's own priority to stay in power requires prolonging this war as long as possible. Biden essentially admitted this last week in a Time interview. And again, what is they're having taken the tools of real pressure off the table, they are now kind of trapped within this effort to kind of put political pressure on Netanyahu. But as I said at the beginning, if there's no real or else coming with that, how much pressure are you really putting on him? And if this is all just a way to maneuver inside Israeli domestic politics, I have bad news. Netanyahu understands his own politics better than we do.
Right.
We have been through this. I mean, the peace process is littered with the corpses of efforts to box Netanyahu in politically.
And Biden's not going to do, and it certainly doesn't seem so far like we've been particularly adept at this at all. What do you make of Gantz leaving now then? Like why? Like what? Why now?
Well, I think it's a sign. It's a long time coming that it's just a straight recognition that Netanyahu is not interested in a ceasefire. He is not interested in doing what I think the entire security establishment understands is necessary to get the remaining hostages out, and that is to cut a deal. And I would note this, in the comments he made, I think it was yesterday or the day before, when he announced he was leaving the security cabinet, is that he was doing it because he demanded Netanyahu agree to the ceasefire. Now, you've got the Biden administration out here constantly messaging that Hamas is the only one standing in the way of a ceasefire deal. It turns out that Benny Gantz does not agree with that.
Yeah, this is I just don't understand how this is. This is how. Yeah, here's Gantz. I mean, this is and this isn't like. You're not reading this is Barak Ravid writing this in Axios, who, for all we know, is writing,
he's the Adam Schefter of the Biden administration.
It's this countdown until when he announces his book deal with, to make Biden look like he has saved the Middle East or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, if
I like
Ravid,
Barak, I'm going to say that.
Well, okay, but if Ravid knows this,
yeah.
Well, I don't understand what the game is here, because if the Biden administration thinks we're going to turn Israeli public opinion against, why are they behind? Why is Benny Gantz out in front of them? I just don't understand, who is the audience that they're trying to placate here?
Right. I think that line about part of, going back to Biden's speech about the ceasefire, one important thing that he said was the goal of preventing another October 7 has been achieved. He was essentially trying to create a victory narrative. He was trying to create a ladder for Netanyahu to say, listen, did it, climbing down. And again, I think this is part of misunderstanding how Netanyahu operates, which is kind of confounded given how long these guys have known each other. But yes, then to turn around and pretend that it's all on Hamas, it just goes back, I think, to Biden's general approach to how this works, is that the U.S. stands with Israel and the blame is always elsewhere. It is incoherent.
It's totally incoherent. What of the Israeli Supreme Court, and I have not checked on this recently, was supposed to make a ruling about the ultra-Orthodox in Israel. As to whether they needed to participate in the mandatory draft, essentially, that has always existed in Israel.
Right.
Everybody at age 18 goes into the military, I think, for at least a year or two. And except for the ultra-Orthodox. And there's a couple of members of Netanyahu's coalition, I think Shah's, and I can't remember the second, that said that they, the Torah, I can't remember.
United Torah, I forget.
Something with the Torah.
Yeah.
It's big there.
Which apparently is very popular in Israel. That they were encouraging Netanyahu also to accept the peace deal. I mean, they're out in front of the Biden administration and acknowledging that Netanyahu is stonewalling this. But is there any connection there? Do we know? Are they worried that their sort of constituency is going to be like, hey, wait a second, why are we going into the military? We're supposed to be, this is when I'm supposed to be reading.
We're just
the
stealing
Talmud
land.
right
We're
now.
not going to fight for it, though.
No, I mean, I asked a few Israeli colleagues about this, and I got variations of not really and always possible. I mean, this has been a long simmering issue like this, and again, this agreement with the government and the ultra-Orthodox parties goes back to the founding of the state and these kind of special concessions that were made to kind of consolidate, the project early on. But obviously, this community has grown considerably. They continue to be subsidized to hang out and study the Torah and have lots of kids, and a lot of working, tax-paying Israelis don't think that's fair, and they're quite right about that. But yeah, my understanding is it's not a huge part of Netanyahu's. Never discount that. I mean,
right. I mean, it's just probably. I think between the two of them, they may have maybe not even 10 or 12 seats in the Knesset, but that. There's not a huge margin of error in the Knesset for Netanyahu.
Right, there isn't. But again, give him his due credit. This is a guy who knows how to stick around.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, then the timing, that brings us to the timing of this hostage rescue, I think, where 4 hostages rescued, maybe some were killed over the weekend. We don't have independent verification on that. It's what Hamas is claiming. And then 270 Palestinians slaughtered in this hostage rescue. At minimum, hundreds more wounded. The reports were apocalyptic. Children's body parts in the streets, dogs eating the decaying bodies of people. Now, we know that the bulk of the hostages were released during the temporary ceasefire. But 4 were rescued here, and this is, I'm sure, something that Netanyahu's government sees as a massive victory. What is the timing of this? Was this meant to demonstrate that the war needs to continue for the return of hostages? And do you feel that the timing was in order to take some pressure off of Netanyahu on the ceasefire?
I mean, I think you have to assume that partly, but I also think part of it is, I would imagine they got intelligence of where the hostages were, and it was an opportunity to go in and get them. Obviously, the costs of this rescue are enormous, and it's frankly disgusting to see U.S. officials out there, praising this as a successful operation. Of course, I'm glad that the hostages are out, but 270 people killed and as many, hundreds wounded is extraordinary.
And reports that it was potentially an aid vehicle that came in. Now, I don't know. This is unverified. And there's also, at the very least, there's footage out there of an Israeli, I think it's a Chinook helicopter, landing at the pier or taking off from the pier. Now, it's unclear what was going on there. I don't know if they were that was one of the hostages that was being evacuated. I mean, we have no idea. But
there's a lot out there.
It's reminiscent of what happened in the wake of the CIA using vaccination programs as a way of getting at, I think it was bin Laden or whatnot. You had, I mean, maybe hundreds of thousands of people who forego vaccinations because they thought it was all
and that endangers relief operations everywhere in the world. And again, just today, I mean, because this, again, I don't know, I've seen some of the rumors out there about the helicopter and the pier, but we do know that this operation took place in the deconflicted humanitarian zone around that pier. Again, let's acknowledge.
And Cindy McCain's organization.
World Food Program, that's what I was going with this. Is they've announced that they are now pulling out or at least suspending operations again because this endangers their work. This is supposed to be an area that is safe for humanitarian operations. And again, we have to recognize Hamas being present there, holding hostages there, also a war crime. That of course does not cancel out Israel's own responsibilities. It never does.
There's a story in NBC News today that the Biden administration has discussed potentially, I mean, there's 4 qualifiers for this, right? Discussed potentially negotiating a unilateral deal with Hamas. So they've discussed the potential for a potential solution with Hamas. Do you think that's real, or is that just another sort of lame attempt by the Biden administration? And this would be just for the American hostages. And this, of course, this again would be something that you could imagine the Biden administration thing would put a lot of domestic pressure on Netanyahu because if the U.S. can get their hostages back, why can't Israel?
That's right.
But do you think it's real, or is it just we're just going to float this?
I would hope that they've been talking about this via Qatar from the very beginning. I would wish. I mean, how many times have we sent CIA Director Bill Burns over there, a very capable diplomat, to do these rounds of talks? So I would expect this has been raised in some aspect. I don't know this for sure, but I think the fact that they're kind of leaking it out there is another attempt to kind of put pressure on Netanyahu just at the possibility that this could happen.
I mean, as if Netanyahu's not aware that there's a possibility that this could happen. And he's like, well, now they're leaking it as a potential. So I probably only have another 18 months.
Right. No, exactly. And let's also remember, in terms of threats and pressure, we had the so-called Rafah red line, which was apparently very, very serious. And that operation went forward and we folded. Biden folded.
Totally.
So why would you think these kinds of threats and pressure would work unless you're actually willing to move forward with
to
real
do one of
consequences?
them? Yes. It's frustrating to say the least, and it's also horrific in terms of watching what's going on there. Let's. I mean, unless there's anything else that you think we should know. I mean, I don't. At least in on this, where we're at today.
No, I feel suitably horrible. I think we can move on.
Well, okay.
We've done our job.
My one quick question to you is: do you think that this has done significant damage to Israel's ability to deter people like Iran and Hezbollah, given the fact that they are so bogged down in Gaza right now?
I mean, that's a good question. I mean, I think what we saw, I mean, it kind of goes both ways. I mean, what we saw a few weeks ago with and I think I came on and spoke to you guys about that, the Israeli attack in Damascus and then the Iranian counterattack and the kind of regional coalition that came together to defend against that. So I think that showed that there is a capacity if Iran were to move to escalate like that. I don't think they're inclined to do that. And we've seen Hezbollah continue to harass and fire rockets and essentially depopulate Israel's north. I don't think they're inclined to go big, at least not yet. I think they are succeeding from their point of view with Israel and the U.S. continually and increasingly isolated in the world.
I had two more questions regarding that. The one being the Iran nuclear deal. I think we've spoken about this certainly in the past couple
going
of
back
years.
many years. Yes.
Yeah. Have you and I think at the time we thought like this is a big missed opportunity for Biden.
Yes.
This is a failure of competence.
Yes.
Have you revisited your assessment of that in light of just how deep his ideological commitment seems to Israel? In other words, like, it certainly struck me as like, oh, wait a second.
Yeah.
Maybe there was an element of not necessarily wanting to make this deal that was a little bit stronger than I had presumed based upon the way he's acting now regarding Israel.
I wouldn't say I've revisited it. I thought early on it was a huge mistake not to simply go quickly back into the deal. I continue to think that.
Well, I agree in terms of mistake, but like as far as I'm concerned, Iraq was a mistake. But if you ask Dick Cheney, he'll go, "No, actually, it wasn't," and it turned out pretty well as far as the things that I assess these things on. I mean, do you I guess was it a mistake from Biden's perspective to not get back into that deal?
I think their view is they waited. They made a strategic choice to wait a little bit to see if they could draw something out that was slightly bigger and stronger and longer, but that they did eventually make an effort. And I think it's true. I mean, Rob Malley, who was the special envoy for Iran, he's on leave right now. But there were several rounds of talks and reportedly were pretty close at various times. But again, by the time these talks really got serious, you were dealing with a much more hardline Iranian government. I think that's the opportunity that was lost by not going in early, is that you still essentially had the team that signed the deal with Obama back in 2015. And by the time Biden got serious about it, Iran was going into its elections, and so that team was no longer capable of cutting to a deal. So I think their view would be like, well, we tried, and Iran just wouldn't go for it, which is not entirely untrue. I think they would prefer that they had the deal. I think they would prefer, even though its timelines were much shorter, it still would have put a cap on the program, still would have had heavy inspections on the program versus what we have now, which is nothing.
Nothing.
Israel wasn't in favor of it, but
well, the Arab countries, the other Arab countries, what's the are you surprised that they still seem to be like, we're not hearing much? It seems to me from Jordan and in Egypt and Syria, for that matter. I mean, what do you make of that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm surprised. We rarely. I mean, these are not very effective foreign policy actors. That's been part of the problem. I think we have seen some escalation in rhetoric, especially from the Saudi government, which I think used the word genocide recently for the first time. But they still are holding to, the countries that have already joined the Abraham Accords, like the UAE, like Bahrain, and some others. The value of those relationships from their perspective, from the perspective of these repressive regimes, is still there. But I think the political cost, certainly for Saudi Arabia, that's kind of off the table for them right now, certainly in the absence of any kind of remotely meaningful commitment on the Palestinian side.
All right, let's turn to Europe for a moment. The EU elections took place, and just will you explain to me that we have the national elections, which are on a different schedule, but the national parties then can also run for the EU Parliament, and those right-wing national parties, in many instances, outdid they did better in the EU elections than they are doing even domestically.
Right.
What's that dynamic?
Right. Let's know. First, they definitely made a strong showing in the EU Parliament. The Parliament still contains a strong pro-Europe contingent, the majority. But no, the far right has certainly boosted its numbers. But there are some specific countries like Germany, like Austria, where the far right made a really strong showing here.
I wouldn't worry about that.
Yeah. When did that ever go bad?
Yeah.
Italy, Meloni is now very strong. The far right there made a strong showing, but I think France is probably the biggest news. Le Pen's National Rally organization made such a strong showing that Macron was decided to call snap elections. And I saw that, and I started to have this horrible flashback because, if you think back to June 2016, there was an election that was called, or a referendum that really didn't augur well for what eventually happened in the U.S. elections.
You're speaking of Brexit?
I am speaking of Brexit. It was conceived by David Cameron as let's just hash this out and get this over with, and I'll demonstrate that actually I'm still in charge. And I see echoes of that here. Macron he called these elections, let's just deal with this challenge right now.
What is the theory? Okay, so now Macron sees the strength of Le Pen's party in terms of the EU Parliament, and so he thinks I better nip this in the bud. What is? I'm not even sure I understand the strategy behind it.
He feels that it's better to go sooner rather than later. He has a read on his own politics that is, I would hope, better than mine. But again, we have some pretty good examples of where this didn't work.
Politicians lose.
They do lose. They do lose. And as I said, they lost to an extraordinary degree with enormous consequences in June 2016. And I have a very bad feeling about this one,
And also both in terms of the way that it augurs for Macron and for this country.
Right. These trends are not isolated. They echo, and they certainly echo here. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah. Well, this has been great.
Yeah.
You could have brought a muffin basket.
Can we talk about Menendez? Can we end up?
Oh yeah.
I don't want to take control of your show. But
no, please do. Let's.
Can I ask you quickly though about India though? That's one thing
that's kind of better news. Yeah,
better news.
Good idea. Good idea.
And on better news.
Let's go with this. Yeah.
So Narendra Modi's party did not have the gains, is my understanding, that the BJP that they traditionally. Or that would have been good for him. He's still in power, but significantly weakened. Just quickly, what is your assessment of that?
Yeah, no, I believe for the first time he will have to work effectively in coalition.
Oh.
So this is important. I think clearly he and his party felt that they had the wind at their backs and would just continue forward with their very ultra-right nationalist agenda, but this appears to have put some brakes on that.
Why can't India be our leading indicator?
Maybe it will be. I'm going to go with that.
Yes.
Again,
all right.
Emma, thank you for
You're welcome.
This,
although Menendez, also fun news, so we can get into that too.
That's an evergreen. So anytime you want.
They found so much cash in this guy's house.
Cash and cars.
Yeah. Gold bars and cars now, Mercedes. Yeah.
Cash, gold
Right.
bars, and Mercedes.
Yeah.
I mean,
A humble public servant.
Yeah.
I'm sure this. I mean, but to
You're
be
playing
fair,
the game called capitalism.
He did. He did come from Cuba, so that's the reason, right? Why he's keeping all that stuff in his
Yeah.
house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
It's
can't
just-
trust the banks here.
Right. No, he appears to be sticking with that one. No, there was that story that came out last week, which I don't know why I'm obsessed with, but that his own lawyer confessed, I forget what the context was, that he eats at Morton's Steakhouse 250 nights a year.
Oh, I did not hear that.
Jesus, that's a lot of red meat.
I don't know.
Well, they have seafood
emergency
there, don't
message
they?
from Bob Menendez's colon. Help me.
That's right.
I'm worried about him and getting the Jordan Peterson psychosis.
Yeah.
Well, they also give you a 10% discount on cash when you pay in cash. Ding! There you go. So that's probably it. I would imagine he's had like a lot of work done on his house, right? Like that's like a big contractor.
Oh, yeah.
thing, the cash thing. Matt Duss. I mean, I want to say always a pleasure,
Thank you. For me too.
but it's usually mixed with what you have to talk
Yeah.
about.
No. I will note some better news for next time. I'll make it my
We'll work on it.
project.
Yeah. Where can folks see? I mean, are you regularly writing anywhere, or is it you had this piece in
MSNBC last week.
MSNBC last week?
Yeah, I publish in the New Republic pretty regularly. But check my work out and the work of our team at the Center for International Policy.
All right. We will put a link to that in our podcast and YouTube descriptions. Matt Duss, always a pleasure.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks a lot.
With an asterisk.
Thank you.
Folks, we're going to take a quick break and head into the second half of the program, known as the fun half. I mean, it was fun with Matt, too, here. I don't want to. But also, just a reminder, it's your support that makes the show possible. You can become a member at jointhemajority.report.com. When you do, you not only help this show survive and thrive, you get the fun half, you get the free half, free of commercials, special bonuses. Maybe what we'll do is open up the tickets for our live show in the
Election night.
For members
first to
right?
members
Yeah.
first. That is the idea. So, folks, help support the show. Go to jointhemajorityreport.com. Also, justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee and hot chocolate. You can get the Majority Report blend. Have you been out to Madison? You're like, I don't know why.
It's been a
associate
while.
with Madison,
No.
but they're out of Madison. They gave free coffee. You remember that those protests with Scott Walker?
Yes.
They were handing out free coffee
That's
to all
great.
the protesters. Great coffee. You can get it ground. You can get it whole bean. A bunch of different varieties. The Majority Report blend, obviously the best. The WTF blend, still bitter after all these years. Use the coupon code Majority, get 10% off. And Emma, ESPN, all Celtics, right?
All Celtics. We'll be talking about the Celtics going up 2-0 on the series. Kyrie can't beat Boston. And, I mean, Drew Holiday is one of my favorite players in the NBA. We'll also talk about the results of the Panthers shutting out the Oilers in Game 1. They're making some lineup changes. And then also, we'll talk about the Caitlin Clark being left off the Olympic team and why that was probably the right decision, youtube.com/ESPN.
She
show.
had no jealousy, she said.
She did. I'm starting to think maybe she should start to talk out a little bit about some of the most racist people in sports media backing her to, the hilt. But at the very least, she says the right things for the most part on the basketball end. So youtube.com/ESPN.
It's funny that all those guys really defending her because of her skin color are also the anti-participation trophies folks.
Oh,
Whereas,
yes.
They kind
Right.
of handing her as if she's the Michael Jordan of that league when there are other players whose names they can't even pronounce that are much better.
And she also, if someone gets injured, she could still feasibly make the Olympic team, too. It's just statistically, it didn't make sense for her this year. But anyway, youtube.com/ESPN show today.
Matt, Left Reckoning, you guys going to be talking about Celtics?
Yeah, I'm going to be talking about Jaylen Brown as the best player on the Celtics.
That was some amazing mind games by Kid. And maybe, a little accurate, at least so far.
I don't know. It's close. They're both good. Mike Preisner joined David Griscom and I. He reviewed Tulsi Gabbard's book For Love of Country. We got into what Tulsi's doing when she goes over to like the Horn of Africa and to fight jihadists, for instance. Which, Mike had some interesting insight into. So patreon.com/Left Reckoning. A little teaser on, I believe, the YouTube and other social media. So check that out. Patreon.com/Left Reckoning.
All right, quick break. See you in the fun half.
You are in for it.
All right, folks, 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Anarchy. Alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you could imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just wanna degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it in my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Snowflake says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
Oh no, Sam Seder! What a fucking nightmare!
Bring back DJ Danner.
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Danner.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break.
That's fucking nonsense. You see white people doing drugs, they look worse than normal white people, and all white people look disgusting.
And the alpha males,
psych, fuck them.
Snowflake says what? Snowflake says what?
A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. Okay, I'm making stupid money. Hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank.
All lives matter. Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black African. And the alpha males are black. And the Africans are back.
When you see Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keeping it 100. Can't knock the hustle. Come on, fuck them. Things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday. Happy birthday to me, Jew boy.
I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back. Africans are black. Alpha males are black. Africans are back.
Come on. Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.
We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland. Fun half. Emma will be with us in a moment as we reset the studio. Juniper J, is it possible that Europe will beat us in the race to fascism? Well, it's won in the past.
It sort of already did.
No Leto, no Thomas too, etc. Okay, high value male Kowalski. In the case of the French, I think what Macron is doing is actually kind of good. He will not lose power personally since he's the president, not a prime minister. But if the legislature becomes dominated by the right wing and the recession ends up being as bad as it probably will be, then it will not be his party taking the blame. Plus, Macron can probably rally way more financial resources for the next national election, putting them in a stronger position. Most politics in Europe are going to be on